doing, crowd? Today I'm going to take you through the journey I went through to learn how to pike fold. I'm going to walk you through how to safely perform the pike hold and touch your toes. We're going to walk through what may be stopping you from being able to do that. Specifically the muscles that may be tight or weak and bottlenecking your flexibility gains. Hashtag flexibility gains. The more we know, the better we can apply information to our specific goals and get there faster. And thirdly, with that information in mind, I'm going to walk you through the exact stretches and exercises that we can do in order to get to a place where we can touch our toes so we can pike fold. And if you stick around to the end, I'll give you some tips that we can use to actually speed this process up. Let's get straight into it. How do we perform the pike hold? You want to lock your knees out to keep your legs straight. Next, we're going to anteriorly tilt the pelvis. So think about pouring a jug forward. Finally, leading with the chest, we're going to fold forward. Now, you may want to record yourself for this one. This is primarily a hip dominant movement. So the main no-no that we're looking out for is the point at which your hips give up and the back begins to bend. So if your back takes over here, there is literally no point in trying to push further. In fact, it may be detrimental to do so. Remember this point for later because we'll be coming back to it in one of our stretches later on. So that's the pike hold, but let's talk about what could be stopping you from being able to do it. Sport and exercise scientists always talk about how efficient our bodies are, but I just see the word efficient as another word for lazy. Our bodies will do everything in its power to only maintain what it needs, and when it comes to movement, our bodies and central nervous system has a very use it or lose it approach. Hours of sitting at a desk for work in ergonomically atrocious positions is a clear signal to our muscles that we do not need the elasticity or strength in these sort of ranges. And while you'll be forgiven for thinking that all we need to do here is stretch the hamstrings in order to be able to get our hands to our toes, there are actually other culprits that could be at play here inhibiting you. Let's take the calves, for example. One of the jobs of the calf muscle is to flex the knee and actually originates deep into the femur, so the upper leg. When we pike, we take the knee in the opposite direction. So rather than knee flexion, we take it into knee extension. And because hamstrings tend to be more malleable and stretchy than calves, what we tend to find is that when we bend forward, we feel it more in the hamstrings. The next culprit we have is the gluteus maximus. That ass! If you do lots of squats and deadlifts, you'll probably find that this area is quite tight for you. This muscle, along with the hamstrings, is responsible for hip extension. But remember, we're trying to get into hip flexion. So we really want to turn off activity in the glutes, and I'll walk you through how to do that in a second. The next culprit that may be restricting your flexibility is the sciatic nerve. One of the reasons you may not be able to pike is because your central nervous system does not feel it's safe for you to do so, and so it nannies you away, protecting you from putting yourself in dangerous positions. It does this by limiting your range of motion. The largest nerve in the leg, in fact the largest nerve in the body, is the sciatic nerve. Prolonged sitting or trauma to your glutes, aka falling on your ass, may cause you to experience pain up the back of your leg or actually in your lower back whenever you attempt to pike fold forward and touch the floor. Now, obvious disclaimer, if you're experiencing pain, definitely go check out an expert, go see a physio. You only get one body, don't gamble with it. But the sciatic nerve is definitely a reason that we should explore for why you might not be able to pike forward. The final bottleneck that we really want to explore is the glute medius. I literally call this muscle the middle child. It's a muscle that not many people consider and often doesn't even get that much attention. For this reason, it atrophies and becomes weak. Well, what does it do? Its main job is to abduct the hip, so hike it up. Why is it important? Well, the hips are a very complex joint, and we want to be able to have healthy hips. Imbalances within the hips such as this are reasons why we end up getting this sort of dysfunction where we can't do things like touch the floor. So make sure you're working on these sort of postural muscles in order to maintain healthy hips. Also, if the glute medius muscle is weak, it is harder to control. Weaker muscles are harder to control. And we mentioned that when we fold forward, we need our glute muscles to turn off to get into that pike position. So if we can't control these stabilizer muscles, then that is going to be a problem. Whether that be lower back pain, pain in the legs, inability to reach certain degrees of flexibility, we're gonna find problems and they're probably gonna manifest themselves in various different ways. Armed with that information, we can identify what we need to do to build flexibility in this range. These are the specific stretches that I used in order to be able to learn how to touch my toes. Now, like everything on this channel, I've tried to keep them very simple, very easy to understand so that everybody can do them. We're all about accessibility here, so you won't find any wacky pretzel shapes that you won't be able to do. So first up, we have the calf stretch. You can do this anywhere that you can elevate your foot. I personally like to use stairs. Plant one foot flat on the ground and allow your weight to shift slowly onto the heel of the calf you're stretching. Hold that for about 30 seconds or 3 really deep breaths. What we don't want to find ourselves doing is compensating with the hamstring. So 2 things you need to watch out for. Make sure you keep the leg of the calf that you're stretching straight and keep yourself in anterior pelvic tilt. So make sure your hips are always tilted forward. Now you can play around with different variants of this by rotating your foot. You can take your foot outwards and stretch it in lots of different directions, take it inwards and stretch it again. But if you do, make sure that you keep your hips straight on. Otherwise, there's no real value in doing this. You'll just be doing it but facing a different direction. The next stretch is one that targets the glutes. We're going to lie on our back like so and eliminate the gap under us by slightly contracting the abs. I'm going to take one leg up. So I've got my right leg here and cross it over my left leg. Then take our left leg and while keeping the hips square and keeping both butt cheeks still on the floor, we're going to slightly shift our left foot further left. At this point, you may already actually feel a slight stretch on the right glute. What we're going to do here is grabbing our right knee, we're going to visualize pulling it towards our left shoulder. Make sure your hips don't collapse and roll towards the side you're pulling towards, and try to keep that right glute relatively close to the floor. It may come up a little bit, but that's what we're looking for. Try to keep that right glute towards the floor. Hold this for 30 seconds and then do this for the other leg. Earlier in the video, we talked about the sciatic nerve, and the best way to temper it is through something called flossing. No guys, I don't mean that thing that your dentist tells you to do and then you always ignore. To do this, we need to get down into a deep lunge. So I have my left leg forward. Here, place your hands on the floor and bring your chest towards the leg that is forward. Chin up, big deep breath in, and as you breathe out, shift your weight backwards and fully, keyword fully, extend that forward leg while trying to keep your chest connected with that leg. You can make this a little bit harder by flexing the foot towards you. Try not to cheat by lowering your bum. So what you want to do is try and keep that back leg so that it doesn't go back further than 90 degrees. We mentioned earlier that we need our central nervous system to recognize that this is a safe range to be in. And the best way to do that is to breathe. We always see some people in the gym, they're stretching, they're holding their breath, they go red. But what we want to do here is breathe deeply. In on the let up and out on the stretch. What this will do is it will allow us to relax and tell our central nervous system it's okay to be here. Perform this for about 10 reps, hold the last one, then switch legs. Next, we need to sort out the glute medius, which we mentioned is usually quite weak. So this is going to be less of a stretch and more of an exercise. So make sure you take what we're about to go through and shove it into your workout maybe about 3 or 4 times a week. The setup is very simple. Again, lay down on your side with your lower leg slightly bent, head resting on your lower arm. Now keep that upper leg straight, lift the foot up, flex it towards you and rotate it slightly so that the toes point downwards towards the floor. What we're going to do is we're going to slowly raise the leg up and down for reps. Try and keep it in a straight line, and we're going to keep those toes pointed down. What this does is it makes sure that we're not getting the other larger muscles involved here. Finally, I've been saving my favorite stretch till last. We have the PNF hamstring stretch. Say this 3 times fast. proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Don't be intimidated by the name. All it basically means is that we're going to contract while trying to get into the range that our goal is focused on. For this, you'll need something you can press into. So I have this old cushion. Get into as deep a pike as you can safely go while placing your palms flat on the floor or the thing you're using to press on. Then, while breathing in, first squeeze your quads, then press down hard with your hands. Hold for 5 seconds, then relax. Try and get a little bit deeper into your pike hold, then perform this again. Do this for 2 or 3 times and tell me if that doesn't allow you to get deeper into your pike hold. As promised, we're going to get onto the 2 tips that I mentioned would allow us to speed up this process. We spoke earlier about our body's ability to really just discard anything it doesn't deem to be necessary or interesting in keeping. And we can stretch and stretch and stretch, but if we don't do anything with that newfound flexibility, our body's just going to get rid of it again. So the best way to school our central nervous system and grill our brain to keeping this and making sure that it deems it important is to build strength in this newfound range of motion. Skills like the L-sit are really great for this. It forces you into a pretty tight, compressed range of motion. But if you can't do the L-sit, what you can do to switch it up is wall leg lifts. Do it against the wall to make sure that you're keeping yourself honest, because let's be honest, if we didn't have the wall there, half of us would start rocking backwards and forward in order to cheat and get our legs up higher. And then the final tip here is for myofascial release or self-massage. Fascia is basically the glue that keeps us together. It connects everything in the body to every other thing, and we can jumpstart our flexibility gains by applying light and sustained pressure to really get that fascia to elongate. You can do this with a foam roller or tennis ball or any hard surface really that you can really get your muscles into. I actually do this a lot while watching Netflix, so you can really relax into it. It does make hosting guests a little bit awkward, but oh well. Guys, mobility is such a huge part of calisthenics and such a huge part of general health. If we really are looking for that long-lasting health that's going to allow us to be in our 60s, 70s and 80s and still be able to go and pick up our shopping on our own or go for a walk with our grandkids, that's going to be the sort of thing that is going to really enrich our lives. Performing these sort of exercises and stretches is how we win at fitness. Again, these are the tips that I use to really nail those flexibility goals that I had. I still use them because honestly, I'm not quite where I want to be mobility wise. I can't undo 12 years of football in 7 months of stretching. So I'm going to keep at it. Guys, I'll see you again in the next video. Until then, peace.